There's a question running below almost every decision that you make, and you've stopped hearing it because it's been running in your head since you were about 5 years old. And that question is, will they let me? And it's before you speak up in the meeting, before you raise your rates, before you start that thing that you've been thinking about for 3 years already. Some part of you scans the room for whoever's in charge and waits for the nod. I never got the nod. I became a professional mind reader at 13 years old, and today, CEOs pay me to fix their sales. And stay with me because I'm going to hand you two things before we're done here: where that question came from and what it's already cost you, and the one place it keeps hiding after you're sure that you've killed it, because that second one is way more expensive. And once you see it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. And I should probably explain how weird it is that I'm the one talking with you about all this stuff, because I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina. My dad worked in factories my whole life. Mom was a secretary. Great people. Zero pattern or example for me to do anything weird, right? But at 6 years old, I started doing the weirdest thing I could find, which was reading minds, doing magic tricks. Nobody suggested it. There's no form that I filled out. There's no adult standing by to approve it. And that interest turned into more than 15,000 live shows at Universal Studios for tourists from every country you can imagine. 13 years working alongside James Randi, the most famous skeptic, touring the world, doing television in front of the camera and behind the camera as a creative consultant for Chris Angel. And then somewhere in the middle of all of that, I walked into a boardroom and found out that the psychology underneath the show was more valuable to them, the executives, than anything they had gotten from people who were studying business on purpose. I didn't plan to be a business consultant, which is kind of why I trust what all that experience on stage and touring the world taught me. Now, here's the part of the story that should bother you. I mean, it bothers me, right? I stopped asking the world's permission at 13. That was the day that I got paid $200 from a company to perform at their summer picnic, and thought, well, this is awesome. And I've been supremely unemployable ever since. But it took me 20 more years to notice that I hadn't actually stopped asking. That blind spot got my car repossessed. It cost me most of my relationships and friendships. It kept me broke while I was performing at a world-class level. And we're going to cover all of that, and I promise the root of all that for you is hiding somewhere you'd never think to look. So let's talk about you. If you spent your working life inside organizations, then will they let me is more than a question you ask. It's the water you swim in. School, or as I like to call them, government indoctrination camps, installed it. Raise your hand, wait to be called on, ask for the hall pass so that you can go pee. Work reinforces it. They give you a raise. They approve your promotion. The project gets greenlit. Everything good that has ever happened to you was hiding behind someone else's signature. So the system worked. Technically, you advanced. In the whole time, it was training one reflex deeper and deeper into you. Nothing happens until someone above you says yes. Then, one day, an idea shows up that's actually yours. Maybe it's a business, a book, a show, something with your name on it. And that reflex, it happens without you even knowing it. You look up, out of habit, for the person who's waiting to approve it. And here's the sad part. The looking for permission feels like you're doing work. Researching feels like progress. Waiting for the right moment feels like discipline. And I mean, like, Pink Floyd wrote the anthem for this. It's on the Dark Side of the Moon. A man sitting around in his hometown, comfortable enough, waiting for a starting signal that's never scheduled. 10 years disappear on them inside a single line, and that song is about a specific kind of person. And if it stings when you hear it, you already know what kind of person. Okay. Now, you'll tell me you're different. Of course. You'll tell me this was never about permission. You're being realistic. You need a little more experience first. The market's crowded right now. The kids are still young. You'll do it after the next promotion once there's more runway in the savings. Every single one of those explanations sounds responsible. That's what makes them dangerous. They let the permission reflex wear the costume of caution. And don't get me wrong, you will never, ever hear me say that you have to quit your job so that you can start following your passion. That's the fastest way to burn your life down and set yourself back 10 years. Ask me how I know. Right? But let me say the true thing as plainly as I can say it. Nobody is coming. There's no person anywhere whose job it is to notice that you're ready. There's no committee reviewing your case. The gate that you've been standing at politely for years, unmanned, there's never anybody there to begin with, just like V for Vendetta, if you're familiar with that movie. I know this because a 13-year-old kid from the mountains of North Carolina with no credentials, no connections, and no money walked straight through that permission gate, and the only thing on the other side was an audience. Being a performer taught me something most people never get to learn directly. You can dream something up, sell it, build it, and have people love you for it. No degree, no license, no adult supervision. The entire transaction runs on your willingness to create the thing and then sell the thing. That's it. That's the whole secret handshake to get into the backroom club of success. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because if the story ended there, it would be a motivational poster like, kid ignores the gate, works hard, wins. And yeah, you've heard that one before, and you're right to be suspicious of it, and all the other survivorship bias examples like it. Okay, so here's the version that actually happened. I spent years being extraordinary on stage and broke everywhere else. I mean, like, actually broke. My car got repossessed on my girlfriend's birthday. That was wonderful. And there were stretches where the only way to get to a gig was borrowing money from friends, drive out on that borrowed gas money, sleep in my car, which I called being on tour to make it sound sexy and not hobo chic, do the show, hope to God they had the check there, deposit it by phone instantly, come home, pay everybody back, and land on exactly zero again. And then wonder where the next show is going to come from. Now, living like a bum aside, even when I started making money, there's a social cost too. And honestly, that's the more difficult one. Because when you live that far outside the standard story, most people can't find a box to put you in. Somebody at a party asks, what do you do? You tell them, oh, I'm an international touring performer. And you can watch their filing system crash in real time. Is this guy making it up? Is he making fun of me? Is it serious? 99% of the people I meet have no way to place me, so we never connect, right? You could be surrounded by people and be completely unplaceable. So, what was my explanation for solving all this? What did I think needed fixing? I thought I needed to be better at the skill. That was my whole theory. Get better at the craft, and the money has to follow. I gotta be so good they can't ignore me. Thank you, Steve. So every spare ounce of energy went into the work itself. More study, more reps, more polish, fixing the script, practicing more tricks. And here's what makes that theory so seductive. It's almost right. Okay. Craft matters big time, except by that point, The craft's already at like world class. I was honing a knife that was already sharp because sharpening was the only thing I believed I was allowed to do. Sit with that sentence a second. It's the whole video. That's everything I'm trying to say. Remember the thing I said that would bother you? That I stopped asking permission at 13 and took 20 more years to notice that I hadn't stopped? This is where it was hiding the whole time. Every time the business side of my own career came up, pricing, marketing, selling, negotiating, maybe even getting a normal job so I could pay bills and actually afford better promo materials to land more shows. Anytime that came up, a little voice would speak up in the back of my head instantly, automatically, and it feels like fact. I'm a full time performer. I'm not a business person. Say that sentence slowly and listen to what it actually is. It's, will they let me in a costume? Pointed at myself. I had already defeated the outside version of the permission monster so early and so thoroughly that I assumed the war was over. Meanwhile, the same reflex had moved inside and gotten a job as the bouncer at the door of my identity. Every time money knocks, the bouncer is checking the list. Businessman, I'm sorry, you're down as a performer only. So the world stopped being the thing I waited on when I was 13. The waiting itself, though, survived. It just found a new gatekeeper, and the new gatekeeper was me. All right. The day that changed was the day I expanded who I allowed myself to be. The capability had been there the whole time, but the permission hadn't been there. Performer and businessman, artist and salesman, the skill and the machinery around the skill held by the same person. And then the money showed up. The craft hadn't really changed in years. What changed was the identity I had around my skills. So here's the one sentence, the whole thing, the line I'd want you to tell somebody at dinner tonight. Nobody is coming to let you do things. And the last person you're waiting on is yourself. I want you to picture somebody who's actually done with asking. Both layers. They're quieter than you'd expect because none of their energy goes into waiting or looking for permission. There's a calm to them that you'd mistake for confidence, but it's simpler than confidence. They've just stopped holding court for a judge who's never coming. That's it. They have an idea on Tuesday, and by Friday, some small, real version of that exists in the world, or hell, even Tuesday afternoon. They price their work by looking at what it's worth instead of looking sideways at what everybody else is charging and then doing that. When a door looks locked, they walk over and actually try the handle instead of relying on everybody else who didn't try it but says, "Oh yeah, that guy said it was locked." Okay? When their own head serves up an old sentence about who they are and who they aren't, they notice it the way you'd see an out-of-date sign on a building. Huh, that's still there. They move on, right? The gap between that picture of success and your Tuesday is that permission reflex. That's its exact size and shape. That's exactly what it is, okay? And in case you're wondering, this is why CEOs hire a former mind reader to work on their sales, because I keep finding the same thing inside companies that I found inside myself. The sales team that can't close is sitting downstream of a company that never decided what it's allowed to be. The founder who can sell but can't teach anyone else to do it is running on a private identity that nobody else has access to. The problem almost always walks in wearing a revenue costume And it always turns out to be standing deeper down than anybody in the building ever thought. So I spent 20 years learning that in the most expensive way available. And now that's why I can spot it in a single conversation. That's the trade, I guess. I mean, a decade of borrowed gas money bought me that diagnostic eye, that ability to see through the problem to the real cause. So now you know nobody's coming, and you know about the bouncer inside your own identity, which means if you actually start moving, the next thing you're going to hit is strange and painful in a brand new way. You do the work, like real work, good work, and the room barely reacts. You're finally moving and somehow nobody can see it. And there's a reason for that, and it's fixable. And it's exactly what I cover in If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Click that, and I'll see you there.